Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast. And welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
I wanted to share an experience I had about a week ago and thought I could make this thread for anyone else to post their own weird stories they have while hiking, camping, and generally being in the wilderness. Nature is undoubtedly spiritual and paranormal, that everyone can agree on. I'll greentext my story in a bit. Pic related is an edited picture I took of a tree while on the hike. Be me, Arizona, hot-ass summer, the whole week off of work. Pretty stressed recently, I need to burn off this mental fatigue. Decide to take a nice hike through the woods. Despite what gringos think, Arizona does have plenty of forests even in the hotter places. All the real parks are super far away or full of tourists. Too broke to afford driving halfway across the county. Decide to go to a lowly populated area in Tucson, not saying where so I don't get doxxed. There are a decent amount of houses, but between the houses is a massive valley-like wash area. The little valley is full of trees. Water maintains a path down the middle that I can walk through, but everything else is thick. Enough trees to provide shade in most spots. Actually pretty cool for a summer day here. Stop by a Circle K. Just bring water for the trip since I like foraging for my food while I hike. While I walk back to my truck with the waters, I see a skinny-looking coyote just sitting by the dumpster. Think nothing of it because we're close enough to the wilderness for coyotes to be common. Seen coyotes inside the Tucson Mall, so it's not like they're scared by people anyway. I know about this one dirt road that goes to nowhere but attaches to this one valley wash. Park truck, lock it up. Put sheets over windows because I'm paranoid and think that'll make people not steal from me. Begin my walk through the woods. Patch of brambles before you get to the walkable part. Not literal brambles, but like cactus and shit. Tough through it, only get a thorn in my jeans. Take my nice serene walk through the woods. Spot a few cool birds I haven't seen in a while. Some weird bugs too. There's so many bug species that have yet to be identified, you know. Just generally enjoying real nature. More real than the state parks that have tourists in every cranny of it. See the occasional very old can or bottle, trash from decades ago probably. Doesn't look like any people have been here in a long time. It's like noon now. Kind of tired, hot as hell. Thankfully, the shade is getting more intense as the trees get more dense the further I go from the road. Find this big rock that was casting a bunch of shade below in the valley. It's a really cool spot, very comfy under the hanging rock. Sit down and rest my legs for a second, relaxing for a few minutes when my ears shoot up. Innate feeling of being watched. 3 coyotes further in, kind of hiding under some trees. Clock that it's coyotes. Calm down. Brought my revolver with me, so I'm really not afraid of a bunch of crackhead wolves. Steer clear of them, but walk further in. Plan to go home soon. Get a basket from my backpack. Start collecting some prickly pear fruits to use when I get home. Get maybe 10 or so into the basket before I hear this horrible spine-chilling howl. It sounded like one of those Aztec death whistles. Put the fruit basket in my left hand. Take the revolver out of the holster with my right hand. Probably a mountain lion or some dumbass in one of the far-off homes using a death whistle. For some reason. Steadily tread back where I came, keeping my revolver out and turning my back every few seconds. Not really that concerned, but I don't want to be mountain lion dinner anyway. I haven't really clocked it, but I'm so far in the wilderness that I was near the base of one of the mountains. Walk for a little while like this, paranoid that a big cat would jump up and try to eat me, hear the same horrible howling. For some reason it makes my eyes tear up. Hands start shaking. At this point, fuck the fruit basket. Drop it to the ground and start jogging back. Look behind me a few times. The same 3 coyotes from before are stalking me now. Genuinely scared shitless. In my paranoia, I just randomly shoot at them and hit one in the body. Or the leg. Hard to tell. It gives off a sad whimper and falls to the ground while the other 2 scatter. Calm down significantly, for some reason. I still keep hurrying back out of here. Hear the howl again. It's louder now, like it's closer. Very close to me. Know that mountain lions are massive pushovers, so I just scream violently as if I was trying to scare off one. The fucking howling happens again, louder again. Just give up on any reason and sprint back. Eventually get back to that thicket. I can almost see the road right here. Decide to slow down so I don't rip myself up with thorns. Look behind me while crossing the thicket. I see a shadow person just standing by a tree. Ignore it because I know I hallucinate, and this is just something from the stress. See a fucking actual mountain lion in the very, very far distance. Barely visible in the darkness. It's somehow aware that I can see it, and it makes itself hidden again. I can't make out any details about it from a distance. Definitely looked pretty big for a mountain lion. Stop looking and get out of the thicket. Jog back over to the dirt road in my truck. Finally look down at the ground again. There's paw prints from the mountain lion, as if it followed me into the valley and only started stalking me when I decided to leave the valley. Thoroughly freaked out because I thought mountain lions weren't like this. Get in the truck and zoom off back home. Have these horrible nightmares about a mountain lion pouncing on me and ripping out my throat. I think this could just have been me having a panic attack or hallucinatory episode combined with a mountain lion trying to kill me. But maybe it was something paranormal. The howling sound reoccurs in some of my nightmares now.
Hiking and other things. Some things I thought I wanted to share with /x/. Not exactly fear-inducing, but it made me wonder, and still does. Be me, started a sort of hiking club and cult thing. Go on at least one weekly hike around the Sandia Manzano Mountains in New Mexico. Usually 3 or 4 people go, sometimes 2 or sometimes more, depending on availability. Last Wednesday we took on the trail called Travertine Falls, and the ones that branch off, forget the names. Seemed like a normal Wednesday in the Albuquerque Tijeras area. Nice, sunny, calm, but hot as hell, for March at least. We get to the actual falls, if you can even call it that. Take a rest there, check canteens and camelbacks, usual checks before proceeding. This time there is just my friend and I. As usual, we use the hike to sort of vent things, philosophize about life, and general far-out stuff. This time, for some odd reason, we decided to talk about paranormal stuff, how the mind places things that aren't there, and things we've experienced. Nearing the third fork in the trail, we hear a bike ring. Look around and move aside to let the biker go. Nothing. No biker, no sounds of other people. So we call it a, hey, maybe there's another trail near, and go on. Talking about the Mandela effect and all, how it takes over the true memories. Link it to what just happened, but make nothing of it. Continue to talk about Mandela effects, reality distortion, and general perception issues and all. Again, we hear a bike ring along with 2 female voices, so we look around. No bike, no 2 women, but we still hear their whisper-like voices. This point of the trail is a sort of scenic view, a small clearing, and there was no way a bike could get past the ankle breakers and boulders at a point behind. Again, we move on. Question the reality of what just happened, as any normal person would at this point. We stop to drink water and notice something. There is no sound other than wind and leaves, no birds, animals, or anything, just wind and leaves. There is only the noises of the wind and leaves, not even the airplane above. It is a bit eerie to be this quiet. We think maybe the altitude, but considering the peak at the Manzano Mountains is about 9,700 feet, and we were at around 7,300 feet, that seemed impossible. Check the GPS on my phone to see how much further until the next fork and peak, and it shows about 2 more miles, estimate due to low signal. There was a particular tree with a hole, and in it was a white rock. Take notice of the rock/tree to make sure we take the correct path down. Sometime later, we see a couple of dudes hiking up. You can smell the weed from the 20 feet away they were. Ask us how much longer to the peak, and we say there's about 2 more miles of trail, give or take. They say, thanks dude, and go on. Find a point of interest to rest, a fairly big rock next to a view. We take off again after about 10 minutes, and we see the exact same tree with the hole and the white rock. We knew it was the same tree since I etched a G on it. We think, we may have looped around. Think not much other than coincidence, and go on. Remember that we saw a similar tree on a previous trail the week before. About an hour later, we reach the top, take another rest before we head down. It starts to get much colder, and the air feels sharp when we breathe. Notice how repetitive the trail really was. Yeah, it's a mountainside trail, but it was near exact every loop. Eerily similar cacti plants on the side of it, trees bent the same way usually. Confused, we look at the GPS and find out we are in fact going the right way. On the way down, we reach the area where, we thought, we'd seen the tree and the white rock. It isn't there. There is a cut and burnt stump surrounded by white powdery dirt and rocks. A lot of things become more and more repetitive, so we panic a little, thinking we took a really wrong turn. Reach the Travertine Falls end fork much faster than we'd thought. When we get there, the falls are actually a little more giving. There is a decently small stream coming from them, and the air feels more moist. There is still little to no ambient noise, however. Again, we hear two females talking or whispering in the distance but see nothing. Some 20 minutes later, arriving at the car, we see the two stoners preparing to go on the hike. If not similar, they were identical people to who we saw. Same shirts, hairstyles, sunglasses, and shorts, but their voices were less South New Mexican accented and more of a normal accent. Say hi to us, and again, ask how long until the peak, and we tell them about 10 miles. Say thank you, and we go on and plan another hike for the upcoming Friday. We decided on Birdhouse Ridge for the next hike. Pick-related, the peak and end view. Talking about life struggles and remembering the shit we experienced on the previous hike that Wednesday. We arrived at the top. Nothing of much notice was seen or heard, but again the ambient noise was not there. Take a rest near the area in the picture. Look down from the rocks, and there is a biker going on the trail and singing. Sometime later, about 30 minutes, there was a pair of mid-20s women walking along the trail. The same whisper-like voices as before. For a moment, we think of it as just a placebo, since we couldn't possibly hear them clearly. We notice a sort of derelict trail behind our point of interest. Decided to explore it, and off we went. There are scorched trees, beaten, unkempt paths around it, and it generally looks like it has been sealed off. There's a long shale slide on the side, and we can see a trail to the way up at the bottom. Cross the shale to what seemed to be the other side of the derelict path. There is an ammo can. Etched on the side is geocache. Curious, we open it, why not? There is a 50-cent coin minted 1974 with a nick near Kennedy's chin. A U.S. flag patch. A decent condition 9 of hearts playing card. And a yellow guitar pick. I put in my Zippo lighter. A 5, a blue Lego 1982 Spaceman. Always for some reason carry a Lego man on me. And a replica World War I airship pin. We'll post the items found if asked. So we move on, and we see a glass container on a burnt tree hole. Go down the shale slide, trying not to die. In it is a small white pebble, a Crown Royal bottle, still reeking of alcohol. Make nothing of it and move on. After a bit of mindless exploring, we make our way back, but we recognize nothing except the path. Maybe our minds are messing with us out of curiosity, but we recognize nothing. Taking the same path we took, we notice more cacti, fallen tree stumps, and all. Hear a plane soaring above us, but see nothing. Considering Albuquerque is host to Kirkland Air Base, we think, hey, maybe it's just one of those training things they hold. On the way down, we spotted a C-130, usually common to see them flying in pairs in the springtime. But this one was alone, and the sound of the engines echoed all over the clearing. For some reason, birds all of a sudden decided to start chirping near violently. Maybe they were startled. On the way down, again we see the two stoner guys, but back with their South New Mexico accent. Say hi, and again, ask how long till the peak. Continue, and the air again feels sharp and cold, but the temperature was about 80 degrees. How? We see near identical trail loops, but this time it was kind of expected. Something we didn't see before was a rock with a hole in the middle on a tree, pick related. It's one of those things you'd notice the first go, but we didn't see it. Started a bit of an argument as to whether we'd seen it or not, and concluded we hadn't. Take a photo and go. Again we hear the bike ring, but no biker. This time we ignore it. We hear the plane's engines soaring again, and with it the violent chirping begins, like the birds wanting to overpower the sound of the engines. After a seemingly unending loops of nearly identical trail sections, we reach the car, and only just notice it is near pitch black and silent on an otherwise busy road. It branches off Interstate 40 Route 66 to several small towns. Stand there for about 10 minutes, kinda lost on how exactly it went from a bright day to a near pitch-black twilight so fast. Maybe the trail had become so repetitive that we went on just autopilot, not taking in the surroundings. Maybe the trail was just short, but the GPS read 14 miles. Round trip. Somehow, after the rock with the hole, we didn't take conscious notice of how fast time went, and awoke when we reached the car. Some things out of place. I remember my camelback being about half or so full at the holed rock, and in the car, it was empty. Phone battery at the peak was 73% after a few photos, and lost due to signal search. At the car, it was down to 11%, even though on the way up there was full signal, and I had it on power save. 3 missed calls, and a few unanswered texts. My knife went from my chest strap to my right leg pocket, and some powdery debris on it. My jacket had dirt on it, a rip on the left butt of my sweats. Part of my shoe had black marks, like ash. I do not remember ever doing things that would result in that. I remember a near hypnotic and endless looping path in the mountain. All went blank after the holed rock, pick-related. Maybe not the best story, but if anyone reads it, comments on it, I have no idea what to make of it other than a mental autopilot. Also, here are the geocache items, for anyone interested. I don't know what to make of it. Neither does the friend I went with, as he experienced the same autopilot feeling.
I live at about 6,500 feet on the backside of the Manzanos, northwest of Mountain Air, New Mexico. As far as hearing people talking goes, I can hear my nearest neighbor when they are outside talking 3/4 of a mile away. Sound travels so well out there. At night, I can hear cars coming down the dirt road for miles. Haven't had any spooky encounters out there, but I can tell you where there are a lot of old mines out that way, and even an abandoned military missile launch site not too far from 60.
Yeah, for some reason these mountains are really good at tricking with noise. You heard those rumors about how the Sandias are hollowed out by the cartel?
So did you experience lost time? Could be aliens?
Nah, it wasn't like lost time per se, but like my mind realized it was more repetitive than normal and just blocked off. I take it as I may have fallen or something on the way and had to move my stuff, but still can't think of how the phone was nearly dead.
Be me. Friends and I decided to go hiking and camping and went upstate to the Catskills Mountains in early winter. Bit more than we could chew because we had to hike 3 days with 35 pounds of supplies per person, and our driver was going to pick us up about 20 miles away. It recently rained, and so the paths were basically ice and snow. Got even worse once we reached the beginning of the mountain. The paths pooled in water, so it was almost entirely ice. We kept pushing forward because we were losing daylight fast. Reach a part of the mountain where the whole trail was tilted to the side, and to the left was a steep slope that would kill you if you fell. Pace slows to a near crawl, 'cause why rush death? On the mid-walk, I put my right foot down, and it's ice. I can't keep my balance and slip. Refuse to go out like this. Look for the nearest thing I can grab and get a hold of a young tree strong enough to support me and my weight. Get up with the help of my friends and upper body strength and go on. It was one of the most deadliest situations I've ever been in, but I don't regret going camping and plan on doing it again as soon as possible. Pick related. It's the day of the incident.
Sup/X/. So some strange shit's been happening around my house lately. I live in rural Pennsylvania, about an hour west of Centralia. I've always been big into the paranormal, but I never really saw anything. So the main issue I have is that I'm kind of socially inept. After all, when most of your conversation is historical references and ghost stories, not many people want to talk to you. So I've found myself taking to the woods out behind my parents' house. After all, it's spring. Might as well go outside, right? Anyways, I've taken to hiking on my parents' property. It's not that far a drive, and there's a great view if you can reach the top of the hill. The only real danger out there are snakes, bears, and a few different kinds of spiders. Due to these dangers, I carry a kukri with me along with a pistol. For those that don't know what a kukri is, it's a big fuck-off knife. I don't expect to fight bears with the thing, but it's nice to have for the bushes. I also have a small backpack filled with Cliff Bars, a camelback bladder, about 12 feet of rope, and a first aid kit. Well, the other day I came across something interesting. The usual path I follow is an old ATV trail. Most of it is overgrown, hence the big knife I mentioned. Usually I'm careful when I walk, but this time out went full dumbass and twisted my ankle. Now I wear an old pair of army boots that hug the ankle, so it wasn't a bad twist, but it still hurt. As I got up to the top of the hill, the sun began to fall behind the horizon. Okay, not a big deal. I can just walk back after a small break. I sat down on an old stump and pulled out one of the bars. As I nibbled at the cliff bar, I examined the area around me. I'd never been up here so late, so I was curious as to what I would see. Of course, I saw nothing for a long while. I crumpled up the wrapper and stuffed it back in my pack. No sense in waiting until it was dark, I thought. Might as well go home and get the ankle looked at. That's when I saw movement in the bushes. Thinking it was either a deer or a bear, I drew my pistol. A deer would run, and I hoped my gun was enough to at least stall a bear. I pointed it at the bushes, staring down the sights. That's when a woman walked out of the bushes, immediately screaming shit and dropping to the side. I lowered the gun and apologized. The woman was about 4'10", with black hair and pale skin. She was in average hiking clothes as well, so I didn't think anything was out of place. I asked her what the hell she was doing sneaking through the bushes, and she told me she'd gotten lost. I apologized again for almost shooting her, and we talked a while longer. After a few minutes, I noticed she had oddities. She spoke with an accent I couldn't quite place. It sounded European, but at the same time sounded off. She also sat eerily still, as if even the gusts of wind weren't moving anything. It was then I noticed her eyes. One was a dark blue, the other was a brown. I'm talking a deep earthen brown. I pointed that out and she immediately took offense. I didn't see why after all, that's pretty damn cool to have that going on. I then asked where she came from. About an hour east of here. I chuckled to myself. So you come from Silent Hill? What? Centralia. There's a game series that took inspiration from there. Oh, cool. We sat in silence for a long while. It was starting to get dark and I didn't have camping supplies. From the looks of her pack, she hadn't brought any either. I asked if she parked close by. She responded with a confident no. So, being the chivalrous gentleman I am, I asked if she wanted a lift to her car. Once again, she said no. Understandable, you don't accept rides from strangers that carry guns and kukris around. It then hit me that I didn't even know her name. So, I introduced myself. Hey, I'm Jake. Emily. Well, at least I had a name. I stood up and said my goodbyes to Emily and explained I was going to head back. Once again, I offered her a ride, to which she declined. I started limping away on my bad ankle only to have her tell me to stop. I do as asked and slowly turned. She asked me what I did to injure it, and I explained that I twisted it coming up the hill. She then asked me to sit down and undo my boot. This is the part where things got odd. Now I had planned on just roughing out the ankle until I got back home. I didn't think it required any first aid at all. However, Emily disagreed. She explained that there was a nearby stream and that it could help full the pain. After she helped me up, we walked into the bushes. I looked around, taking notice of different things. This area of the forest had something most of it didn't. It had color. There were purple and pink flowers in the bushes. The bark was a very healthy-looking brown. It was also just a tad brighter in the area. There was a light coming from somewhere, but I couldn't make out where. We eventually came to the stream and she began working on my ankle. I began pulling out the first aid, but she insisted that it wasn't needed. Odd, I hadn't pegged her as an all-natural type. She carefully used the stream's water to bathe my twisted ankle. It hurt for a moment as she moved it around, but it began to start feeling better. Much better. Now I know this has nothing at all to do with my house, but just hang on. After the ankle thing, it gets a little blurry, like when you're smoking some dank shit and can't really get thoughts straight. After the stream thing, I remember being in my car. It was the next morning. My seat was reclined and my back ached. I assumed I must have gone back down and slept in the car. I rotated my ankle to find that, yeah, it still hurt. I dug in my pack for a bar and started up the car. I pushed the odd shit off as some sort of odd dream. After all, I was still injured. I drove home shortly after. The night before was still a little hazy. As I pulled into my driveway, I noticed something odd. There were small stones about the size of my hand, placed in a circle in my front yard. I walked over and picked one up. It was black as tar with an odd symbol carved into it. I pocketed the stone and headed inside. The shower was calling my name. A few days passed before anything off happened. I'd removed the stones from the yard and placed them in a box. The box then went into my garage for me to not give a damn about. After about a week, I started having odd dreams. The first dream was average. It was Emily and I at the stream. We chatted while she fixed my ankle. The next night, I had another dream. This one was far more odd. Emily was gone, and I was lying on my back in the stream. I stared up at the stars and the light was getting brighter around me. The next day I found the stones rearranged into the circle. I saw it when I went out for the morning paper. I gathered them up again, put them back in the box, and taped it shut. I was not going to ask how they got out there.
As someone who used to live in Pennsylvania, I can confirm that there are weird things there. Pyramids in Bucks County, for one. That's a compound owned by the ancient and mystical Order of the Rose Cross. There's other weird stuff, like the Germanic rites of Braucherei, which is like folk magic. I've been into a lot of that kind of stuff, so it's something that really sticks out to me. You see benign manifestations of it in the barns of the Pennsylvania Germans, where they have the so-called hex signs and pentagrams. The bulk of the magic is hidden, not out for the prying eyes of the public, so to speak.
Anyways, a few weeks passed before anything happened again. It was late at night and I was watching TV. As I was flicking through the channels, I heard my front door open. I called out to see who it was. I slowly reached for my gun when I got no response back. A few moments passed before I stood up and walked over to the door. It was wide open. I glanced outside. Nothing. I turned and looked down the hallway. Nothing. That's when I heard what sounded like a clopping. If you've ever heard a deer walking around, this is what it sounded like. I followed the sound throughout my house, but I never saw a deer. A few days later, I heard someone running around my garage. When I went in there, I saw the box the stones had been in was gone. The garage door was closed. A few days after that, I began hearing giggling. It would be at random times and sounded like a little girl's laugh. When I would investigate, I would find nothing.
It's midsummer where I'm at right now, /x/. Is there truly a better time to shed the hypocrisy of modern living and place thyself on the path of balance? Nature is a ceaseless source of beauty, inspiration, and power. It is our creator, our cradle, our teacher, and an incandescent, eternal temple for the oldest of our common gods. Why does a good hike clear up the most encumbered of minds? Why does sleep, relaxation, or meditation beneath the stars supercharge anyone to be their best self for days afterwards? Why is it so refreshing to place thy bare feet on some dew-moistened grass? Why do modern vices, depression, drug, porn, alcohol, and all manner of other addictions, well as anxiety, low self-esteem, helplessness, and even poor eating habits all melt away and burn into nothingness when you plunge into the great outdoors on a voyage of exploration and self-discovery? Why do foods and beverages cooked on an open fire and consumed in the wild taste so damn good? Why, it's because when you do all these things, you are where you belong. You are back home in the environment that shaped your very body, gave you the reflexes and abilities you possess. Bountiful nature is the place to be. Heed the call, feel the love, set your heart ablaze. Pack what you need, stretch your legs, crack your knuckles, bare your teeth, rush inside. Under the golden canopy of a deciduous forest, or betwixt the stout pines, in the desert or the lush flower field, on a trail or in the brush, walk or run or lie down. Smell the fragrant air, listen to the animal calls. Know that you are one with this majesty, this eternity, this splendor of colors and shapes and heavenly music, and magic as old as Pan's flute or Cernunnos' horn. Give in to the truth of thy hidden self. Give in to the truth of thy hidden self. Man is but a cunning beast, and to live life to its fullest you must respect that fact. Pledge to eat only what you gather or hunt. Pledge to wear only what can be woven or sewn from the plants and animals local to your area. Grow, evolve beyond what you were programmed to consider alive and dead. Learn to speak with Brother Wind and Sister Moon, sing with the rivers and streams. Teach your eyes to see through the starry darkness of Mother Night. Befriend a virile stag or a cool-looking little boreling. Respect the trees, the mosses, the plants, the animals, the rocks, the waters, God and your fellow men. Walk nature's path and be blissful and blessed.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.